Last month, Jimmy Carter became the longest living former president at 94 years and then some. To many, he's better known for what he's accomplished since leaving the White House. But a new book makes the case that there was more to the one-term presidency than much of history notes. Our newest contributor, James Rosen, offers a new take on Jimmy Carter.
To my deep regret, 8 of the crewmen of the 2 aircraft which collided were killed, and several other Americans were hurt in the accident.
April 1980 and the catastrophe of Desert One, the aborted rescue mission for 52 American hostages languishing in Iran.
Anger and bewilderment are growing as more and more Americans cope with gasoline lines and empty pumps.
Fuel shortages, double-digit inflation, stubborn unemployment, and soaring interest rates, all critical factors in the 1980 landslide that swept Ronald Reagan and a new generation of conservatives to power, and ended at one term the troubled White House tenure of America's 39th president, Jimmy Carter.
He honored the office of the presidency.
Stuart Eisenstadt sees the history very differently. A lawyer from Georgia, Eisenstadt served as top domestic policy advisor for the entire Carter presidency, and later as President Clinton's ambassador to the European Union. A copious note-taker, Eisenstadt filled up over 100 yellow pads, more than 5,000 pages with verbatim quotes from his private sessions with President Carter, preserving the secret history of the era like a one-man taping system inside the Carter White House.
It makes you a fly on the wall to the presidency.
And in his book, President Carter, The White House Years, a densely footnoted hybrid of memoir and history that weighs in at 1,000 pages, Eisenstadt argues the man from Plains deserves a fresh look and better rating from history.
How do you think Jimmy Carter's presidency is popularly remembered, and what's wrong with that vision?
Well, frankly, Jimmy Carter's presidency is remembered as a failure. But the fact is, his achievements at home and abroad were not recognized, I think, for 2 reasons. First, they were obscured by a whole host of problems. Iran, inflation, inexperience, inter-party warfare with the liberal wing of the party. Also because he didn't communicate them well.
Among those achievements, the Camp David Accords, which forged a peace between Egypt and Israel, still holding today. Carter also passed 3 major energy bills that nudged America toward energy independence, deregulated the airlines, as well as the transportation and telecommunications industries, doubled the size of our national parks, and concluded the SALT II Accord with the Soviet Union, limiting the numbers of ballistic missiles each superpower could stockpile.
What role do you think Jimmy Carter played in the ultimate winning of the Cold War?
All the major weapon systems that Ronald Reagan deployed, the cruise missile, the stealth bomber, intermediate nuclear weapons in Europe, the MX mobile missile, all were green-lighted by us. So Ronald Reagan deserves, and I give him in my book, all the credit for bringing the Soviet Union to its knees. But Jimmy Carter began that whole process and deserves credit for doing so.
But it was on Carter's watch that the USSR invaded Afghanistan, adding to a perception of his weakness on the world stage.
You spent a lot of time with Jimmy Carter. When was he at his lowest that you personally observed?
He was at its lowest when the hostage rescue failed. When the 8 servicemen died, he had us all into the Roosevelt room at the time for our staff meeting, and you could see that he was just traumatized by it. He didn't blame it on the military. In fact, he said to us before the rescue mission, if it succeeds, it's because you, the military, have done it. If it fails, I'll take the responsibility.
Eisenstadt was with the president aboard Air Force One when he received the news that his presidency was finished.
And I remember him coming out of the cabin, and I said to him, Mr. President, we've let you down. And I literally cried on his shoulders like a baby. And he said, you didn't let me down. I let everyone down.
James Rosen, Full Measure.